Is this 7? Are we on episode 7? We are on
I think
episode
so.
7.
7, yes.
Damn.
I know, right? 7 weeks of this.
Amazing. Hi, everyone.
Hello, friends.
Welcome to episode 7
Whoop
of the
whoop.
Brunch and Judge. We did it.
We
Woo
did.
We're your hosts. I'm April.
And I'm Claire.
And we're here to give you some nice, good, clean judging to start your week right.
That's right. So much judging. So what are you judging this week?
Okay, so many things. So, as you know, I have spent the last 3 days at the Public Library Association conference, which was great. So, if
Fun
any of you
times.
are in PLA or were there, it was really good. You know, it's the first big conference after COVID, so it was probably half the size of the normal. I think we had maybe 4,000 people
Yeah.
there, and usually it's like 7 or 8,000.
Is
So
that you think that's a residual COVID thing or
it is. I know that
okay.
like my last library in Lexington, because I ran into one of my coworkers and we had a great fun time together. Love her, love her.
Yay.
Shout out to Amanda if you're listening. We had so much fun. But I know that a lot of staff from the library were doing the virtual conference because they were still doing virtual this year.
Okay, gotcha.
So they were attending some sessions still that way. But I thought overall really good. I
Mhm.
only have 2 complaints, and this is generic conference complaints, so not
Mhm.
specific to PLA. Number 1 is for some stupid reason, in every city in the United States in which there is a large conference center, it is in a weird part of town where there's no food nearby.
Ah.
Like, there's like, maybe 2 or 3 random things within like a block or two. And
Mm.
when you have 4,000 people with very specific, like we had an hour and a half slot for lunch every day. So there's a specific time that 4,000 people are descending upon the area.
Gotcha.
So that was a nightmare. Guys, please, like, if you are a convention center, I understand that restaurants perhaps don't have a lot of other business to appeal to exist in that area. Because, I mean, if there's not a conference going on or something, then there's not people to eat at your restaurant. I understand that. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
But if you are a convention center and you have a conference going on, perhaps it would behoove you to go ahead and call up a bunch of food trucks and just go ahead and be like, hey, we're going to set up an area over here. All the food trucks come on in. It'll be great.
And that way you can just like
Because,
walk out, get you some food, go back
right?
in. You
Right?
don't
Well,
have to.
and
Because
you
if
have
you're trying to
options.
cram like an extra 5,000 people into some of those tiny restaurants, because I mean, even like
Yeah.
Lexington, I mean, they've got places outside of their
Mm-hmm.
convention center slash rep arena, but they're all small. And I
Yeah.
mean, you're trying to cram that many people in, you've got like hours of wait time. It's just
Yeah.
kind of,
And,
yeah. So I think it would be, yeah, I agree. The food truck
and
thing would be a great idea.
this year it was in Portland, so very close, which was good for me. So we just had to, we drove there. It's very short. But I know that Portland is a foodie city because we are
Yeah.
foodie lovers and we
Hmm.
have thousands probably of food trucks that live in
Yeah.
that city. I'm like, come on,
You're like,
guys.
this is a missed opportunity.
Like it just, well, I felt so bad. They had a coffee shop inside the conference center and like not a convenience, concession stand kind of thing.
Hmm.
And they were inundated, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And I just felt so bad for those workers because they were just run ragged. And like,
Yeah.
luckily librarians tend to generally be pretty calm, chill, nice people as a rule. So I don't think anyone got yelled at, to my knowledge. But I just
Yeah.
felt so
Hmm.
bad for them. I was like, this is awful. So that was one judge for the week. Just
Gotcha.
plan better. Like, we have to eat food. Give us some
Yeah.
options.
Yeah.
It's so irritating.
I agree. I concur with that, Judge.
Okay, here's my big judge.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if you've been to like a big conference thing. So we have
Not, I mean,
yeah.
like a Comic-Con kind of thing, but nothing.
I
I
mean,
don't know if you would.
I would say kind of similar because they have sessions in Comic-Con, right? Where you can go
Yeah.
and listen to a panel or whatever. So you've
Yeah.
been in a room and there's like people presenting something or talking, and the room is filled with people sitting in the
Yes.
audience.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, whenever someone finishes speaking, there's always, polite applause. Yay, that was
Yeah.
so great.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Blah, blah,
Like, thanks for being here. Yay.
blah. And all that's great, and I support that. We should support and applaud, especially because some of them were really good. I got some really great sessions and some
Yeah.
great information. I'm like, this is amazing, and I'm stealing all your ideas. So, but in one of the sessions, the guy behind me was one of those loud clappers. You know what I mean? Where it's not this. It's
It's like, I'm gonna be obnoxious about it.
well, and like you could tell that's just how he clapped. Like he
Oh, yeah.
wasn't being a dick on purpose, but
Maybe he
like
just
he's
had
right.
abnormally large hands and the way he. Because I've noticed that, like, Walt, my brother,
Mm-hmm.
he is. I mean, I feel like he doesn't have to hit very hard, but it's a loud clap. I mean, and I feel like part of it because he broke both of his pinkies, like,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like
Mm-hmm.
this when he played basketball, and I don't know if that, like,
Okay.
when he claps, like, makes it louder. But I've noticed that, like, I feel like Walt has a much louder clap than I do, and I
All
don't
right.
even think
Well,
he's trying. No, I get what
we're
you're saying.
we're Walty Poo. If you're listening, you need to tone it down because there are people in front of you who do not want loud clap in their ear. So like you polite clap. Because if you have 1,000 people in a room, we probably had 500, 800. It was a pretty big one. If you have that many people in the room and everyone polite claps, it sounds loud. So you don't need to make up for it. You can just
Yeah,
polite
yeah.
clap. But instead it's in my ear, and it was so loud, like it gave me a headache, and it was so loud that every
That's
time he
pretty
did it, like
bad.
I would like flinch and like I would twitch. I'm like, you see me reacting, you
That
can't
is
not
that's
see
pretty
me,
bad.
because I'm
Yeah.
very dramatic about it, because it was really obnoxiously loud, and I was
You're
like,
probably like,
thank
I
you.
can't wait for this to be over so I can get out of
Right.
here and get
And
away from
the
this
thing
guy.
about it was like this particular session was about creativity and play in the library, like bringing back joy in the library. And I'm like, we're supposed to be having a really good time right now, and I'm not having any joyful moments, okay? I want to turn around and stab him with my pen because it's like, ugh.
You're like, oh, my
So like,
ear.
just be aware that just
It's
because
not like we're at a
everyone's
sporting
clapping,
event,
well,
okay? You
even
know?
if we are, and my dad is a loud sports event clapper, and I'm always like, stop. They can't hear you. It's fine. They don't hear your clap. They just hear clap noise.
Yeah,
So
like
calm
everybody
down.
else is clapping, so it's fine. You don't
It's
have to
like, tone it
overcompensate.
down. You can even like look like you're clapping really hard and still just not
Yeah,
like be
right.
loud. You can do it. In fact, I would much have preferred if instead of the clap that he had been like, yeah, like just one big, go for it. Like,
Nice.
that's right. Do that instead, dude. Like, no more loud claps in other people's ears. I was like, oh. But on that day, I did. We went to Powell's bookstore, which is a cool, amazing bookstore. Next time you come, we'll go.
That's
And I
like
got,
in Portland.
yeah, it's
Cool.
it's kind of like a McKay's. Like it's new, used books as well.
Okay, gotcha.
It's really cool, huge in downtown. But I bought a new sticker. I'm gonna show it to you. Ready?
Yes.
There it is.
Nice.
For those who can't see, it is a cat loaf sticker.
Kitty
And it's a
loaf.
calico cat in the shape of loaf bread, which Aggie always loafs.
It's an Aggie loaf.
She is the ultimate loaf, so I was like, I
She
have to
she
have
is.
it.
She is. Definitely.
But I will say, this year's swag from PLA was pretty cool. I came home with like 17 books and 5 bags and
Nice. So you got
socks.
a
I
lot
have,
of
I have a pair of
stuff.
socks and an apron and
Nice.
just random stuff. So
Nice.
It was good, and I didn't take a lot of swag. I was pretty chill, but then they were like at the end of the thing, they were like, "We're just giving away our books because we don't want to take them back." I'm like, "Give me."
And you're like, well, then,
So
in
I
that
have
case,
I have 3 true crime. I have 4 books signed by the author. Like I went to they're
what?
signed to me,
Nice.
like to April
That's
from the
excellent.
author, and I'm like, man, this is the best thing ever. It's like I could have gone to a real session where I learned something helpful, but I went to the mystery writers panel instead and
Of
got
course you did.
got signed books. Like I do the murder mystery book club. It's totally on topic for
There you
me.
go. There you go. That's right. Ah,
But yes. So moral of the story is mystery writer panel very good. Always go to that. Don't clap too loud. And order in some food trucks. Oh my god.
there you go.
It would have been so much better. So that
These are
those
your
are
3
my
takeaways from
that's
your
my 3
conference.
takeaways. So that's my judge. I'm sure there's a lot more little judges around in there, but those were my main takeaways from my week.
Nice. I enjoyed that.
So Claire, what are you judging this week?
Oh my. So, mom got me a Hunt a Killer subscription for Christmas.
Yes, she did.
6 months. It's like a whole thing. Each box like leads
Mhm.
into the next kind of thing. So it's all one big murder mystery. Those of you who don't know, Hunt a Killer, you can subscribe and they send you stuff and basically you can solve a mystery. And they've got several different options. You can do like a whole season, which is 6 months, or you can buy one that's just like a game that you like an escape room game you play with your friends at a party. I mean,
Mhm. Mhm.
mom got me the 6 month subscription and I'm up to box 4 right now.
Ooh, Claire's
And
cracking the code.
yeah, and it had been a minute since because I had gotten like box 3. I had done box 1 and 2 and I had gotten box 3 and I just hadn't had time to do it. And then I
Mhm.
enough that I wound up getting box 4 and I was like, "Ugh, I need to, so I had some time. So one thing is it's just really funny for me. It's like something I can like just barely look at things and be like, "Oh, that's the answer." And then it was the
Right.
answer. Like not even like getting in depth and reading to it and it's like and I'm like, "Oh, that really was the answer." "Oh, look at me. I was just doing that at a glance, you know, and that. My bad." But then there are other things that I cannot. I mean, it's like I gotta go get a hint. I
Mhm.
have to get a hint. Like I don't ever like just look at the answer, but they do have you can get online and get hints and stuff like that. So I'll go take a hint and I'll be like, oh, okay. That all right, I see. Usually like one or two is enough for me to like get me going
Right.
and be like,
You're like,
oh, okay, okay,
oh,
okay.
okay, I see what you're going for. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like some of those things, like it's like if I didn't get a hint, I would never figure it out. I
Right.
mean, it would be like, was really hard. But anyway, but it, so, but the thing is, when you log on and you sign up for the thing, they'll be like, "Oh, we need to make sure that you're like, I guess, brave enough. I don't know that you're not gonna have a cow and freak out and call the cops
Oh my god.
in the middle." Like that's what they, when you log on, it's like they ask you questions. No, I don't think that it would ever deny anybody a box
But
because they want your money.
well, right.
But
But they're like, well, you need to know. There's gonna be
yes,
shit that scares you. So calm
yeah,
down.
and
It's
so
not
I'm like,
real.
it's I know, I'm like, "It's all fake." Yeah, I know it's all fake.
Right.
So, I get to box 4, and I'm just, like, working my way through, bebopping my way through, and there was this one thing where, what it is, they've got, like, a desktop that you can log into on the app and on your
Mhm.
computer, and the whole premise of the story that I'm doing is this woman has died, and her sister has reached out to you, me, to help discover who murdered her because they've ruled it as an accident. Like she fell off a cliff.
Right.
But the sister's like, "Oh, she hates heights. Why would she be on the cliff in the first place?"
It's like she
So
died from snake bites because she was hanging out in a snake pit. And you're like,
right,
but
exactly.
why?
Exactly. So the first box you have to like figure out, they give you I mean, and this stuff is legit too. Like they sent me like an actual coaster of like the town, their lighthouse and they've got all this stuff that they send and it's all like pretty high quality. So I mean, I feel like it's worth it. If you're into that kind of thing,
Mhm.
check it out cuz I feel like the 6 month subscription's worth it. So, like, the first one, you have to, like, figure out what time she died. Or no, the first one you had to figure out where she died because you know that it wasn't where she was found. And so they've got this desktop that you log on and you just have to they've got, like, a little message section and it looks like an email.
Mhm.
And so it's like you're emailing the sister. And so you just email, like, the most basic, the time. You just or the place. You just type in the location, nothing else. And then it'll come back if you're right, she'll be like, "Oh, yes, let's," and then it'll, like, go from there, and sometimes you have to email more things or that's the end of the box, whatever. But then, like, if you get one wrong, it'll come back and she'll be like, "No, I don't think that's right. Let's, look further, blah, blah, blah." So you're like,
Okay.
"Okay," so then you go back and you look again. If you need a hint, you can go get it. But on box 4, um, you have, like, this story has, like, 6 suspects, and we're to the point where we're starting to, like, eliminate suspects based on alibis and whatever. So, trying to eliminate a suspect, so it's like it was just, like, 2nd suspect to eliminate. So I find it, and I'm like, "Okay, it's this dude." So I go on to type it in, and it comes back, and it's this email, and I don't even know if I could pull it up to read it to you, but it was just like, it all seems, like, super legit. So, hang on, let me see if I can find it. But it says, "You're right." I'm not gonna say the guy's name just in case people are listening and they're doing this.
That's fair. That's fair. No
But it's like,
spoilers.
yeah, this person couldn't have killed Beth if he was at the meeting. But whoever did kill her must know more than I thought. Check the audio attachment I'm sending you. This has to be them. They know what we're doing. 4 suspects left. I don't know what to think. I mean, we're obviously on the right track if the killer is calling me, but I'm kind of freaking out about it. So, and there's a little link down at the bottom, and so you click on it, and it's a voice thing. It's only like 4 seconds long, but when you pull it up, it is legit, like, all those scary, like, voice distorters that you hear
Mhm.
in, movies and TV shows where it's, like, really deep, almost kinda like probably like what you did when you were, like, looking up the base of Mafia stuff, like, when they
Oh, right, right.
interviewed them, like,
Mhm.
that really low, deep distortion, and it was, like,
Mhm.
something about, "Quit sticking your nose where it doesn't belong or you'll end up like Beth," and I was like, "Oh my god." It, like, freaked me out because I'm like, it was dark, it was late. I shouldn't have been working on it at night. It was dark, it was late, I'm alone, and I was just like, "Okay." I just shut the lid of the
And you're like,
laptop
"And
and went
nope."
and I did, I was just like, "Nope, nope, nope, we're done with this
Mhm.
for now."
And you're like,
In
"Let's
fact,
turn on some Bob Ross."
I know, it was like,
Happy
"I'm
trees.
gonna go in the living room and watch something funny because this just, like" I was like, it scared the crap out of me, and I'm just like, "I am 38 years old, and I know that this is fucking fake, but"
Right, but you weren't ready for it either. You're like,
No!
"I'm gonna
I
click a thing,"
was
you're like,
not ready
"Whoa."
for that. I know, I just, like, I'm just like, "Oh, it's the next thing I need to click on," and then it was like, "Oh my god, this guy's after me." So that's my judge is like, "Honey killer, man, you all are,
Damn.
damn indeed." 'Cause I'm not like when and like I said, I know it's fake. I know nobody's after me. It was just like in the I think I was just so in it because I had been working on it for, like, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half. 'Cause there are all these, like, ciphers you have to do to figure things out and
Mhm.
passwords and, I was, like, in it, I had been in it. I was just, like, working furiously trying to figure this stuff out, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I got it," and then it was like I heard that, and I was just like, "Oh my god." So, yeah, that's my judge is Honey Killer is legit. So if you all y'all are looking for something fun and creepy to do, do that.
And now I'm like,
If
"Hunter
you
Killer, sponsor us. Give us some sponsor."
I know, right? But no, it was just like I wasn't like you said, I was not expecting that at
Mhm.
all. Then it was just like I said, it was like, creepy stuff that you see like it was like Criminal Minds shit is really what it was. Like straight out I was like straight out of Criminal Minds. And it's like, "Oh my god," it freaked me out. And I was kind of like freaking out while I'm sitting in my living room like, "Nobody's here, are they? Nobody's in my house." It was one of those. I mean, it was just like, "Oh, geez." Anyway, but it's a good judge because it was like I mean, like I said, I feel like
Yeah.
it's worth the money. But yeah, it was not what I was expecting. So, that was that's my judge for the week. Is I got freaked out by stupid game. We're talking about alien abductions,
That's right. Do 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 do. Feels very
which I
Twilight
think is
Zone-y.
funny because we've already talked about UFOs.
It's true, but this is a whole different layer.
Yes, yeah,
Because there's I
definitely.
see UFOs, and then there's the aliens are coming to get me.
Yeah, this is a whole other ballgame.
Let's
So I
see.
think it's
So,
your
to say,
turn.
is it my turn to go first?
What did we do last week? What was that?
Last week was movies.
No, you went first because I went first on Bitcoin, and then yes, you did because you did Alfred Hitchcock and
I
Tippi
did
Hedren
Alfred
first.
Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'll go
Okay.
first.
Yes, Claire goes
Alrighty.
first. Yay!
It's oh boy, it's a doozy. Let
Woohoo!
me tell you. So I got most of my stuff. I would say 90% of it. I watched a documentary on Discovery Plus called Alien
Ooh.
Abduction. Travis Walton, that's who got abducted.
Did you have nightmares?
No, I didn't have nightmares, but it was interesting because a lot of the people are still alive, and so that was mostly the
Hmm.
documentary was them talking about it, and I was like,
Hmm.
interesting. Yeah,
Well, there
a
you
lot
go.
of the guy, he's still alive. About the only people who weren't still alive were the police officers, but they did talk to their children, like their daughters.
Hmm.
I guess like what they experienced and what their dads had talked to them about
I would
during this
like to
time.
think that my father would not tell me about aliens abducting him.
Right.
I mean, my dad's not a
But
cop, but like, still.
yeah. But the story's about Travis Walton.
Okay.
It was November 5th, 1975
Ooh.
in Snowflake, Arizona.
Aw, do they actually have snow at Snowflake, or is that a lie?
Probably not. I mean, it made it sound like there was mountain-ish areas, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe up on the mountains, I don't know. But anyway, so Travis Walton was a logger and he was out with his 6 crewmates doing some logging. He was 22 years old, and the guys in this group ranged from like 17 to 26. There was also a guy named Mike Rogers, which was like his best friend. Another guy named John Goulet, Steve Pierce, Dwayne Smith, Kenny Peterson, and Alan Dallas. And I think it was Steve. Yeah, Steve Pierce, I think, was the youngest. He was 17.
Okay.
And then Mike was the oldest. He was 26. So they're all just kind of in between there. And they
They're
were
such
leaving a
babies.
job site in it was in the Apache Sitgraves National Forest. They were leaving a job site when they encountered a UFO. They were all in this car riding together, and Mike Rogers was driving, and they see this bright light through the trees. And at first they thought that it might be the moon, but then they looked to the other side of the car and the moon's over there. And they're like,
That seems
nope,
to be a theme in alien abductions. I think it's the moon. You're like,
right,
that's not the moon.
right, yeah. So they come into this clearing, they go toward it, and they come into this clearing and they describe it as a saucer.
Of course. Which
Yeah,
we've discussed. We've
the
discussed
saucer, yeah.
saucers.
Floating above the ground, but it's really low. It's like low, it's not like way up high in the air, it's pretty low to the ground, and there's lots of bright lights like coming from inside of it and on the outside. And they said that they're still kind of pulling up to it and that Travis got out of the car before the car even stopped. And he just started like walking toward it like he was almost like entranced, I guess. And then he just stops and he's staring at this thing and they're all like, "Get back in the car."
Yeah, I would have been like, I would not have let you out of the car, Claire. I'd be like, no, you
I
can't.
know,
Nope. I'd be
right?
like
Yeah,
child locking the door. Nope, locked, 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 locked,
right.
locked, locked.
But they're just like, "Get back in the car." And he's like walking toward it and you're just like, "Have you seen," which they haven't, but it's like, "Have you seen Independence Day?" You know? But
But
then
also,
it's
like,
he
have you seen any scary movie of any kind? You
right.
don't walk towards the scary thing. You don't go,
Right. You're
what's
just like,
that?
"No, run away. Run far, far
Yeah,
away."
it's like,
Yep.
go the other way.
So when he walks toward it, the craft begins making this like noise. He said it was like a low noise and he could feel a rumble, and like the guy driving, Mike Rogers, he said that you could feel it like the vibration like in the steering wheel because he
Mm.
was the one driving. And then they like urgently like get back in the car and they're
Yeah.
yelling at him to get back in the car. And then it said the sky lit up with like this bluish green light that came out, of
Mhm.
like, and that's what I imagine like what it looked like in Independence Day. That green light that came down like a
Right.
beam. But then they said it hit Travis Walton in the chest, and he flies back like 15 feet. And then his buddies are just like, fuck this noise, we're leaving. And
They're
they
like,
just take off.
he's gone. He's dead. We're out. We're
Yeah.
done. Bye.
Yeah, they just like take off because they are freaking out.
Yeah.
They're and then I forgot how far it said they drove, but it wasn't terribly far. And then they pull over and then they're all getting an argument like we need to go back, no we need to leave, we need to go
Right.
get him. And so it's just like they finally decide, they argue about it for a bit. And so then they see like this flash streak across the sky, just whoosh, and they're like,
Right.
"What was that?" And they're thinking, "Okay, it's gone.
Let's go
Let's
back
go
for our
back."
buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, so they go back, but Travis is gone. Can't find him anywhere. No trace, like he was even there. And so they're like, "Oh shit." So they drive into town and they use the payphone to call the police. And the sheriff deputy named Chuck Ellison,
Surely
uh,
they were like, how much have you been drinking?
that's exactly what I was getting ready
Yeah.
to say. Yeah, this guy comes up, he meets them, I guess, at the payphone. And it says immediately he's trying to check for some type of inebriation, like
I mean, it's fair.
drinking, weed, have you been smoking? Like, what's happening here? And so then he calls the actual sheriff, Marlon Gillespie, and he had thought, like, even though he didn't smell it, he was like, these guys have got to be drunk. There's no way.
There's got, yeah.
This is ridiculous. And so Mike, Alan, and Kenny, the 3 of them go back with the police to show them where it happened, and then the other 3 go back into town with the other police. They don't want them to
Mhm.
go home yet. And they get out there and they say there's, like, no trace of anything.
Mhm.
No impressions, no any, like, residual fumes, no footprints of any kind, and that it was, like, getting really late because it's Arizona gets really cold at night, so it was
Mhm.
getting too late to kinda look, so they had to wait. And, as, time goes on, next day, word starts to spread that Travis disappeared,
Right.
and, people start talking as they do in small towns because that's
As
all
they
there is
do.
to do. That's all there is to do in small towns. Let's just gossip.
It's fair.
So it says the town was kind of split on whether or not the UFO sighting was real because obviously they're hearing what these 6 other guys are saying.
Right.
And obviously the authorities are really skeptical about the whole thing. And
Well, I
so
mean,
they send out what?
I was gonna say my first thought, like if I were the authorities, I feel like my first thought would be, did you guys like kill him and now you've come up with this ridiculous story to
Well,
try and
and
cover it
that's
up?
that's where it's headed. That's where
Ah,
yeah,
nice.
that's where it's headed. So it says 150 to 200 people went out in a search party to look for Travis. And again, like you were saying, the police thought that the crew had gotten into a fight and that Travis was killed either intentionally or unintentionally,
Mhm.
like maybe it was an accident, or he had been killed in a logging accident
Hmm.
and they were trying to cover it up. But they never found any body.
Right.
That was like in the search, it's like where did they go to bury this body if that's what happened? And so Don Walton, which is Travis's brother, was with the police when they went out with a Geiger counter in the woods where this happened. And he said that, and this documentary I watched was released on February 18th. He said he is the only living person who is still alive from that group that went out with this Geiger counter.
Oh. Mhm.
And he said that he saw it spike like off the charts. Like if the
Wow.
needle could have gone any farther, it would have. And that
Wow.
meant that there was like this ridiculous amount of radiation like in this area where the UFO had been. And then they say that mysterious out-of-towners in suits and glasses show up to start helping
Yay,
with this.
I super love the Men in Black crap. It's
I
my
know,
favorite.
right?
I'm
They
like,
start
the
showing up
Men in
to,
Black.
like,
Dun, 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 dun.
infiltrate the search parties and start following those 6 guys around who were part of the logging crew. Like, they talked about
Mhm.
how they would just see them, like, sitting across the street in their car, like, you know, and they said you could tell. You're like, "Yeah, this is a Fed car. This is not," like, they're not stupid. And so, uh, the police start investigating it as a homicide officially, and they focus in on the guy named Alan Dallas because he had, uh, run-ins with the law before. I mean, nothing major, but
Well,
I
but
guess it
it's one
was
of
just,
those.
like,
Oh,
because you were
he
yeah.
stole a candy bar, so he absolutely killed this guy.
I
Like
mean,
it's
yeah,
that's
something
the
I mean, it was
logic.
just
It's the
yeah,
70s. They
yeah,
they were
minor
extra
stuff.
stupid back then.
Yeah, it was minor stuff, nothing big, so they're like, "Oh, but you're the one
He
who's got, like, a
loitered.
little bit of a police record, so we're going after you."
He loitered and he broke curfew one night and
Right.
he
We caught him
jaywalked.
smoking in the boys' room.
So
Stuff like
obviously
yeah,
he's a mastermind killer.
obviously,
Obviously.
100%.
No other choice.
But so they hypothesized that Alan and Travis had gotten in an argument a few days before the disappearance and that they helped him hide the body and then concocted this whole thing. But the all 6 of
Sorry.
them yeah, I know, it's so
Can you get that many people to all like cuz they're not bros, they're work buds.
yeah.
But like they're not like me
Like,
and
some of them
you.
were because some of them were like,
Well, right. I
brother
mean,
they were best friends, and some of them were, like, brother-in-laws to each other, like, they're
but like these
they
are
were married
six
to, like,
people,
their
right?
you know, married to, like, the wife's sister or something like
But
that,
there's
one of
always
those things.
somebody who has a conscience who's like, I just gotta tell the cops what
Right.
happened. I can't let me.
The
Like, I
one
mean,
person yeah, who's, like, the weak link of the bunch.
it's like,
But
though you can have
so
one person, you can convince one person if they're
right.
your bestie, to like help you hide the body and make
Yeah, but
concoct
not
some crazy story.
6.
But six, come on, group work does not work. Let's be honest.
No.
This is a
And that's what
terrible
I
group
mean, and like I
project.
said, some of them were like had been doing this together for a long time, but I think Alan was one of the ones who was like the outsider, who was kind of,
hmm
he was like there for the job kind of thing. It wasn't like he was besties with any of these guys. But all 6 of them remained adamant about what happened. And so they all 6 go in to take a polygraph test.
hmm
And they said that the test consisted of 3 rounds, where basically you took the test 3 times and they compared
Okay.
results. And 5 of the 6 of them passed all 3 times. Same
Oh, okay.
questions, they all gave the same stories. The
hmm
one that did not pass all 3 times was Alan, but he passed the first 2 times, but they said the 3rd time that he took the test, he I guess because I don't know if you've ever done a polygraph test.
Oh
I mean,
yes, every week
they
you know
make you
me. I'm always
sit,
being
like,
arrested.
incredibly
Yeah.
still. You're not allowed to move, you're just like, you know?
Yeah, I would
And so
fail
that
hardcore.
he had moved and he had, like, disconnected one of the things. And so but his last test came back inconclusive. So
Right.
it wasn't even that he'd failed the last of the 3, it just came
hmm
back inconclusive, but he passed the first 2. So they were
Well,
all kinda like, "That's unheard of
and
for
I
6
would like
people."
to put in a caveat here to anyone listening. Do not ever, under any circumstances, take a polygraph test. Don't do
Right.
it. I mean, like, this story is fine, but, like, don't do it because just because you know you're telling the truth does not mean that that machine is going to read that because you're nervous, you're
Right.
upset, you have feelings, you're not an ice queen. Like, don't do it. Don't do it. Okay,
Yeah.
continue. Yeah, so they
But
all
that's what
had
they
the
said.
same, like, they all passed, and
Yeah.
so it's like, they're not lying.
Yeah, it
They
was just like
authentically
that was
believe this.
unheard of for
Yeah.
6 people, for them to interview 6 people like that, and they all passed except for Alan, but that last one was inconclusive because he
Right.
moved and it, like, didn't register.
Right. Right.
But anyway, so this at this point in time, Travis has been missing for 5 full days.
Yeah.
And, Travis's sister gets a call on November 10th, 1975. And the brother-in-law, Grant, that's his sister's husband, answers and a voice says, "This is Travis. I need you to come get me." and Travis was at a phone booth in Heber, Arizona. And of course, the brother-in-law at first was like, "What?
He's
No,
like, "Excuse
this is
me,
a
I'm
joke."
sorry, you're
Yeah,
dead."
yeah. And then he was like, "It was a joke." But then he said, as Travis was like telling him, he was like, "Okay, okay." So, Travis says, "I found myself laying on the roadway. I saw a craft hovering there for a second, and that's the last I seen of them." So it was like he was in the road, just laying. That's when he woke up. He was in the road, and it was over him, and then it just like zoomed off.
It's like, "Oh, he's awake. Let's go." Peace
Yeah, yeah.
out.
And so he got up and he walked to Heber. So he didn't actually like. It was like a. I don't think they said how far of a walk, but it wasn't like he was just like in town, like in the middle
Well,
of the
I mean,
road.
obviously the aliens aren't going to drop you off in a
Yeah.
convenient location.
Oh yeah. So he had to walk into town, and he used a payphone to call his family, and his family didn't know what to think when they found him. Like he was,
Fair.
yeah, they were just like,
It's
And so when
like
he started to try to talk about it, of course, this is the 70s, so it's just like, don't talk about it.
we. It's like, shh, shh, don't tell. We don't need to know.
Yeah. Like, no,
We're
no,
not asking. Don't
we
tell
don't
us.
want drama. We don't want drama. But there was so much drama.
Well, I mean, because
And so
nothing else,
they
he's
tried
been
to
missing
keep
for
it.
5 days, and
Yeah,
everyone is like, aliens
right,
took him. So
right. And so they tried to keep his reappearance a secret just because they knew how crazy things were going to get. And so his brother, Dwayne, his other brother, Dwayne, calls a place called APRO, APRO is acronym for Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization.
okay.
And it's run by Jim and Coral Lorenzen, and they investigate UFO sightings and abductions, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted it to like remain completely above board. So it wasn't like, oh, this is just some crazy people coming out with their little homemade machinery, to try to say, oh yeah, an alien abduction happened. So they consulted with anytime they went out, they would consult with like legit respected doctors and scientists, physicists, all that things when they were working a case because they wanted a completely unbiased opinion. I
Right.
mean, they
Right.
obviously believed in UFOs, but they didn't want, anybody to be able to come back and be like, "No, you just made this up," that kind of
Mm.
thing.
Right.
So Dwayne calls them because they want them to like come and talk to Travis. And so he he takes Travis to a hotel in Phoenix, and they check in under a fake name to meet doctors and then Jim and Coral about, talk about his experience. And
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
let's see. They wanted to keep a secret while they were running tests because, it's a big deal. This is a big damn deal. And so he tells them that when he walked up, he heard this low sound that changed to a high pitched sound, and then the UFO started to rotate, and then the blue green light zaps him, and then the next thing he remembers, he's laying in the roadway. So he's
Oh
lost like
wow. He's
he's
lost
lost like
5 days.
5 days of his life. And they were talking about how he didn't really feel like he had like his facial hair hadn't grown, like like you would if you
That's
hadn't shaved for 5 days.
that's weird.
You know, so they decide to do regressive hypnosis to
Mm-hmm.
find out what happened during the 5 days he was missing. And it's kind of controversial. But they talked about when they found him, something happened because he lost in 5 days. They said he lost 10 to 12 pounds,
Ah.
and he was so dehydrated.
They didn't feed him or give him water? Don't they
Well,
understand humans need that?
but then they also said that they did blood tests on him because they were looking for ketones, because ketones are what pops up when
Oh,
you're
when
like,
you're starving, right.
yes, but they didn't find any. So it was like he was
So
dehydrated.
he was nourished but not
Yeah. And so that's what they're like. So they must have, and that's what they're like hypothesizing is that he was, I guess, maybe an IV or something. I don't know.
huh.
But that these creatures who abducted him knew enough about humans to give him some kind of, like, sustenance. I don't know. But he didn't have
Interesting.
ketones in his blood, but they were like, if he hadn't eaten anything for 5 days, there definitely would have been ketones in his blood.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So, on, November 14th, 1975, he meets with a Dr. James Harder to undergo regressive hypnosis, and he says when they finally get in and do it, he says that he was on his back with a light above him, and at first he thought he was in a hospital, but there was, like, something on his chest, like some kinda contraption, and there was a light coming from it, and when he looked down beyond the contraption, like, standing at the end of this table that he's on, that he kinda sees these faces, and they were blurry because he was still coming out of it, but then he realized that they weren't doctors, and he describes, like, your typical alien, that
Okay.
we have in
Okay.
our heads with the big bulbous head and the big eyes,
Right.
that like the apple emoji for your,
Ah.
the little emoji for, your alien on your iPhone or whatever.
Right.
So, he he said he jumps off the table and he grabs, like, this rod or tube that was laying nearby, and he just starts swinging at the aliens because he doesn't know what else to do.
Well, right. Right. He's like,
And then he says
ah.
that the aliens, they don't really fight him back. They, like, fight back with him, they just kinda leave. And so he's trying to find a way out, and he walks out of the room, and he says the air is really thin, and he's having trouble breathing. And, he finds this door and room with lights and a chair, and the lights kinda, like, look like stars and constellations, and he sits in the chair, and it's like a command chair.
Hmm.
And it says he's, like, looking around, he says he realizes he's in alone, and he looks over, and it's this human person who is, like, in an Air Force or NASA kinda suit with a helmet.
Oh.
And Travis is trying to talk to him, but the guy doesn't respond to his questions, and he takes him down the hallway to, like, and he describes it as, like, an airlock room that was part of, like, almost like another ship or something, and, the air was cooler, and he said he could breathe better, and, the stranger took him to this other place that had, and they're telling us now that they were aliens too, these humans, but they're Nordic
Huh.
aliens because
Okay.
they look like, you know, humans, but they're aliens.
Okay. Oh.
I'm just like,
Interesting.
"That's new." I'm like,
Okay.
"Mm."
Sure. Sure.
And so and they're in, like, suits too, kinda thing, and they take him and they put him on this exam room table, and they're trying to make Travis get on this, and of course he's fighting back because he's like, "No, I don't wanna get back on this table,"
Right.
and he says that these Nordic aliens were super strong, like, more so than just normal human strength, and that they're able to get him on the table, and they put, like, a mask on him, and then he wakes up on the road. So this
Ah.
was
Oh.
all within the regressive hypnosis.
Wow. So they after all that they're like, well, we'll just keep him knocked out. It's better this way.
Yeah. So they think that they're keeping this secret, but they're not, because back in the day, when you made a phone call, you actually had an operator on the other end who had to connect you
She was
to
listening in.
yes. So
Like
when
she was
he called
hardcore listening in. Wow.
uh-huh. So when he called his family to tell him to come pick him up,
Mhm.
she heard it all and she recognized the name and, you know, so then I guess she
Damn.
goes and she, like, it says the operator who connected the call leaked all of it to the press. So when he gets back to Snowflake after this, regressive hypnosis and the tests and all that, like, all hell has broken loose and there's media everywhere. And of course, Travis is like, he reluctantly decides to give interviews, and many, obviously, people thought it was just like this huge hoax. It was
Well, of
just
course.
Bush. The
Of
whole thing
course.
was Bush. Everything was that. And they thought that all the loggers and all of Travis's family were in on it. And it was just a big old scam. And there's this one guy he worked as a renowned UFO skeptic slash debunker. His name is Philip Class.
Hmm. Okay.
And he claims that the crew, with Mike Rogers being the ringleader, made up the whole thing to get out of their logging contract. But the
Ah,
thing was, and Travis Walton said this on the documentary, said that they were over 80% done with their contract anyway, but most of the money to be had from the contract, they wouldn't get it until it was done.
right.
So it's like, why would you do all that work and not get paid for it? Like, you wanted
Yeah.
to get done, you wanted to get paid. So it was just like that didn't make any sense for a reason why they would have just made all this shit up. So on February 7th, 1976, Travis and Dwayne, his brother, take a lie detector test and they both pass. So it's like everybody who's taken lie detector tests about this thing has passed. I mean, it's
Right.
just like incredible. And later, I guess nowadays, we talked about this with the UFOs, that the government has changed their stance on UFOs because at the time it was like, no, y'all are wrong.
It's just the moon. You just
Yeah.
saw the moon and then
And
wandered
now it's
off for a
like,
few days and got
yeah,
lost.
and now they're like, oh, well, there are objects out there. We don't know what they are. They're not us. We don't know what they are.
Mhm.
So yeah, meh. And Travis is probably like, fuckers. Why didn't you do this like 30 years ago? 40 years ago, something like that. So in 1978, so this is like 3 years after all this has happened,
Mhm.
Travis wrote a book called The Walton Experience. And it was the first book ever written by acclaimed abductee.
Oh, okay, okay.
And in the book, Travis, he presented all the arguments for and against what he went through, and then he debunked like each criticism one by one. And then on March 12th, 1993, Fire in the Sky, which was based off his book, was released.
Mhm.
And it really opened people's minds to the possibility of alien life and abduction, and starred DB Sweeney. I don't know if you ever saw that movie Cutting Edge, where they were like the ice skating movie.
I want to say yes, but I can't.
He was
I
like a
can't think
hockey
of it.
skater, and then
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
he has to like start doing figure skating.
Yes, I did see that movie.
And then Robert Patrick, who was it the T 3000 1000 whatever it was in the Terminator 2, the one who like
Oh, I never
would
saw it.
just like change into whatever, that actor, they were in it.
Yeah.
And so after the movie was released, of course a bunch of naysayers crawl out of the woodwork, and Philip Glass comes back and he's like, you know, all he's just like, all the people were lying due to lack of evidence, which was just his MO for anything. That's how he debunked everything, was just
Well,
lack of evidence. And so
I'm here
Travis was
to
like,
like scream because like we've all watched Dateline episodes in which people get convicted with less than evidence than
"Oh,
they had.
yeah,
So like,
100%."
there's enough evidence to they probably could have convicted Alan of murder, quite honestly, if
Yeah.
Travis hadn't come back based on
Oh, yeah.
the evidence that was there. But that same amount of evidence is not enough to be
Yeah.
like, maybe there are aliens. Maybe
But
he
that was
was
and that's, like,
abducted.
what his thing was just lack of evidence equaled evidence of absence. So it's like, there's no evidence, so it didn't happen. That
Hey,
was just his.
I
But
don't
then
want to
in
believe it, so I'm going to argue with you and so you can't
right,
prove it.
right? You know, so in 2014, this guy named Ben Hansen, he is a UFO researcher and former federal agent, went with Travis to the abduction site to look for any remaining evidence. And I know it's been decades since that's
Right,
happened,
right.
but
Yeah.
they said they took like a methodical approach, and they almost treated it like a crime scene,
Okay.
and started like in the center and kind of worked their way out. And that it happened in like this clearing, and that since then some of the trees have been cut down, or it was just a bunch of stumps,
Mhm.
and that when you look at a tree stump you can see the tree rings, and that
Right.
normally they're like pretty equal circles like going out, but on the tree stumps around this clearing, that on the inside of this, where the tree stumps were, that the circles were like bigger going towards where the UFO was.
Mhm.
So it's like that side of the tree that was closest to where the UFO was like overhead grew more over
Huh.
time. Yeah. And so and this Ben Hansen, he said that he looked up some reports of what happened in Chernobyl with all
Mhm.
that radiation, and
Oh,
that
mhm.
there were cases where they had said that the trees grew exponentially because of the radiation.
That's interesting.
So,
I guess my thought would
yeah,
have been the reverse. That radiation would, kill it,
right?
not
Yeah, I don't
encourage it
know.
to grow more.
But there were like, yeah, there were studies where I guess they had gone in and done like the effects of radiation on the nature and
Yeah.
the environment around Chernobyl, and that there was evidence that the trees had grown more than more than they should have in after the radiation. So I was like, that was interesting. And there was also a higher concentration of iron in the soil, like in the immediate site, than there was like in control samples that were further out. And they
Mhm.
said other like UFO cases that they said, UFOs have been seen or close to the ground, that they also had like higher iron content or just ferrous material in general. And it's like that there is a possible magnetic field around the UFO that has like pulled that stuff up to the surface from like down below. And so it's like made the particles come up. And that's why there's
Okay. Yeah.
more
Huh.
iron at at the top of the surface. But because of all this, what this Ben Hansen guy did, that it's now, accepted that Travis's experience in this is the best evidence of an alien abduction slash
Ooh.
visitation.
Oh, I got
Because
chills.
there was a
That gives
lot
me
of,
chills.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's out there that's like, I don't feel like you can debunk that, like, especially when you start, like,
Yeah.
getting into the science of it, that kinda thing. And so, that is the story of Travis Walton and his abduction.
That's amazing and terrifying. I never ugh.
And like
I
I
don't want to
said,
be abducted. Don't abduct me.
most of these people are still alive. I think they said
Mhm.
Alan Dallas died in 2010, and then who was the other one? Dwayne? Was it or no, hang on, let me go back to my uh, no, Kenny. No, it was Dwayne. Dwayne Smith. It was Alan Dallas and Dwayne Smith.
Mhm.
Who was not his brother. There's another Dwayne.
Right. Well, this is
But,
Dwayne and my other brother Dwayne. It's fine. I get
yeah.
it.
No, Alan died in 2010, and then Dwayne died in 2018, I think is the date I
Mm.
saw on that. But the rest of them all did interviews for this. Travis's was his girlfriend at the time, now wife, did an interview. There were lots of, you know,
Yeah.
people who were like could testify, sisters,
Like this is what
brother-in-laws.
happened. This is what I
Yeah,
saw. This is what happened next. This is
yeah.
everything. God.
And they
Ugh.
said this is a special case too because it's like there were 6 other people who were there when it
Yeah.
happened. It wasn't just Travis went missing and then he came back and said he was abducted by aliens. There were 6 other people who saw the craft. And so they said this is really unique because usually that's not what happens either. It's usually
Yeah.
just, a couple of people get abducted. They say they get abducted, and then it's just, you go from there kind of thing. But this was like,
Mhm.
there were so many people who saw this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like you said, it wasn't just like even one other person who saw it. It was like, oh, you're his best friend. Of course you're going to say that. These guys were like scared shitless. I mean, that was a thing. Is that,
Yeah.
these are loggers. They're out in the woods. They probably don't get scared by a lot. And that was another thing is that they were trying to say that Travis was a drunk or that he was using drugs,
Hmm.
and and he just disappeared. He went on a drunken bender. But they talked about how logging, you cannot do that and be a logger.
Right.
Because they even said that he barely even drank. Like he wasn't even a big drinker. Like you can't do that kind of job and
Right.
be
Because
inebriated
you'll
anyway
lose a
because you're
limb very
yeah, because
quickly.
it's like
Yeah.
you're using chainsaws,
Yeah.
it's like that could be, you really could like do some damage. But, you know, he he's still alive and he's still out in Arizona
Can you
and
imagine, like,
yeah.
I mean, to we all have trauma, but for that to be your trauma, like, where it's even worse than, I imagine it's even worse than being a woman who is trying to, like, tell her story of sexual assault.
Oh my
Because
gosh,
there are always
yeah.
people who don't believe you because they're
Yeah.
assholes. But, it's a step beyond that. It's your trauma is you were abducted by aliens and you have all these people who saw it happen, and yet
Yeah.
there are all these people who are like, "You're crazy, you're just a drunkard." And he's like, I don't drink.
Right?
It's like
You were high.
when he's
You
probably
know,
like,
I
I
mean, it's
wish
just
that's what it was. I wish I just had a drunken bender, and
right.
instead, I don't know. Because the scary thing is that even with the hypnotic regression or whatever, he still doesn't know what happened to him for most of the time that he was gone, and
Yeah.
that's scary.
Yeah.
Like,
Like, how long did
even if you
he
take away the alien part, not knowing
Oh,
what
yeah.
happened to you for that long, that's horrifying. Like,
Like, how
ugh,
long did
I
he
don't
lay
know.
on that table before he woke up? That kinda thing.
I'm telling you,
But, I
I've
mean,
got like
he's
goosebumps
kinda like
everywhere just talking about it. Ugh.
yeah, he comes to the conclusion that you and I kinda talked about when we were talking about UFOs, was it's like, you're kind of, you know, really close-minded to think that we're the only ones out here.
Yeah.
Especially now that he's gone through this, he's just like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
there's other stuff." I mean, he just and I think that's the thing is he never got hysterical about it. Every interview he gave, he was, like, calm and chill you know, and his
That's
story never
impressive.
changed.
Because I
Yeah,
don't know that I would stay that way to be like,
yeah, and his story never changed, and I think that was about all of them. All 6 of those guys' story never changed. Stayed the same the whole time. And a lot of them talked about how they would try to, like, get out of Snowflake because it was like we couldn't go out because he said
yeah.
either people would come up into him and be like, "Oh, we
I
believe you," or he's
yeah.
like, "You could go out and you get punched just because you're
Well,
saying all this crazy stuff," and
yeah.
they're like, like, "We've been called liars our entire lives." I mean, you imagine going anywhere and it's just like, "You're a liar,"
No. No.
always. So,
Mm.
anywho, that is the story of Travis Walton and his
That is
alien abduction.
a great story. I would say I would watch that documentary, but I'm gonna be honest. As much as I love to do these stories, and I'm the one that has put all of these on our list, they freak me out. Like the whole,
I'll say it would
I
have
freak
it
myself
had,
out with
like,
these. Yeah,
unsolved mystery vibes,
yeah,
but it wasn't like, what they showed with the aliens and stuff, it was, like, all CGI, so it wasn't something
right.
that
But
was,
it's not. To me,
it
it's
like, the
not.
video itself wasn't scary, but
To me,
you're
it's
just
not
sitting
so
here,
much like the images or whatever. It's like just the theme, and hearing them talk about these things that have happened to them, and regardless of whether it's real or not, they believe it's real. So I feel that, like, I can feel
yeah,
their authentic. This is what's happened to me, and it freaks me
yeah.
out. I get so
Drop my
creeped
pencil.
out. Ah. But I will tell you, I can remember that when I was had to be elementary school. Um, let's see. I was probably in like third or fourth grade. I was really good friends with Leanne. You remember Leanne?
Yeah, friends with her on
Uh,
Facebook.
mhm. But I can remember she lived out in the country.
Oh, she was in the middle of nowhere. I went
Yeah,
out there
she
that
was
one
far, far away. Oh, yeah, yeah,
out
yeah,
there in that barn, like, that barn
yeah.
thing. Yeah. I
So
was like
she lived in this super old house. It was super creepy, and I'll tell those stories when we get to spooky topics. But her mom was driving us to their house. And so we're driving on this country road, and there's houses here and there or whatever. And I'm used to the road. It was on the way to my elementary school.
yeah.
But somehow the conversation of aliens came up. I don't know if we'd been to a
Oh, no.
movie or something. I have no idea. And her mom tells us this story, like urban legend kind of story, about this couple who is driving home, because of course it's dark. She's driving us home in the dark. And she's like, this couple were driving home on, I'm sure she said something like, this very road, because that's what adults do to
Because
children.
yeah, that's how adults try to scare you. It's like, "It happened right here."
And talking about how this couple was driving home, and just all of a sudden they notice that the paint on their car is like bubbling, and they look at the clock,
What?
and like 2 hours have passed, and they just are suddenly aware of it. Like, we're driving down the road, and all of a sudden it's 2 hours later, and the paint on the car is like has bubbled, and they have
That's creepy.
they have no idea. They're like, what has happened? What's going on? And I'm sure there was more to the story, but somehow it got around to they were abducted by aliens, and like that. Obviously,
Oh no.
I don't remember anything else. To me, it's the 2 hours passed all of a sudden on the clock, and the paint is boiling, and it was definitely an alien abduction, and it spooked the shit out of me because we're like driving in the dark in the middle of nowhere, and I'm watching the clock. I'm watching it. Like, I'm watching it.
Because they were like pretty far out, yeah.
Yes. But I was just like, and I think that was the first time that because I'm like, I don't know, 10? Like, I'm young, I'm little. I think it's the first time I truly considered aliens.
Yeah.
Like, as reality.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, ever since then, like, when I watch or read anything about UFOs or alien abductions, I'm reminded of sitting in the backseat of Leanne's car with Leanne, hearing the story and staring at the clock, being terrified that the paint on the
you were
car was
gonna like
be
look
bubbling.
up and like 3 hours had passed, and you're like, where did my life go?
And so I kind of have this weird like glitch in my head every time more time has passed than I think should have. I'm like, oh God, did it happen? Have I been abducted? Oh, probably.
You're like,
not.
is the paint bubbling on my car?
So like, I love it, but it also like spooks me out so much.
I know, you're just like,
I love it, but
jeez.
I can only watch those kinds of things in the daylight, and I have to chase it with something else so that I can forget about it. And then I can't go to bed alone.
Kind of like when we would watch, what was it, House on Haunted Hill, and then we're like, okay, and now we need a palate cleanser before we go to bed.
Yep.
Yep. Awesome. So, what story are you talking about today?
Alright, so because I'm assuming we're going to keep this one in our rotation so that there's lots of other future abduction stories, I have chosen to kind of start with where abductions kind of began, like the concept of being abducted by aliens.
Okay.
So I'm going to be talking about Betty and Barney Hill. They were the first, like, I'd say notorious.
Do you want me to leave alien abductions on the Wheel of Fate?
I do, because
there are others, yeah.
There are lots of others, and some of them I find far more terrifying.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I feel like the need to like tippy-toe into where it all started, which was what I read was the Betty and Barney Hill, and then the one that you just did. I didn't read about Travis Walton, but that was one that popped up. I was like, these are the most important ones. I'm like, okay. But I got all of my information from Wikipedia and History.com.
I did too. Wikipedia. It's always great.
Yeah, this one...
Oh, and I think I got, what was the other one? denofgeek.com. That was one. I don't think I mentioned it.
I was watching a little bit of Den of Geek. I don't know that I got anything specific from them, but shout out to them because it was cool. Props to them.
I think it was the one that said that theirs was unique because they had so many other people witness his abduction, and it's like, he's probably not lying.
And this one it sets up how we perceive alien abductions. Like it was the first one that everyone kind of knew about that became super famous, and
because they mentioned
the trope as we understand alien abductions.
Because they mentioned it briefly in the documentary that I watched about Travis Walton.
So we're going back to 1961.
Whoop, whoop.
It is September 19th, and we are hanging out with Barney and Betty Hill. They are driving back from an impromptu 3-day trip away as a kind of a belated honeymoon. They went to Montreal and Niagara Falls.
Did they make a big deal about them being like an interracial couple?
They don't. And I stumbled across them being interracial because I sent you pictures.
At the pictures,
they're interracial in 1961. It's amazing.
That's
but none
what
of that
I thought was
really
weird
mentioned.
when I was looking at stuff. Like nobody mentioned that, and then I saw the photos. I'm like,
I know.
I mean, not that I think that that's a big deal, but it's like it was probably a big deal in 1961.
Well, but to me, I guess the thing. That's why I specifically sent you a picture to show that they were interracial, because was so amazed at how it wasn't really talked about. They were just a couple, but I was like, that's the difference between living in Vermont and living in South Carolina in 1961.
Ah, Vermont. See, I didn't know where it was, so
Vermont.
yeah.
So
Vermont.
they're New Englanders, and apparently they
Because
don't care so much there.
if it had been like Mississippi,
Right. Would not have worked out so well.
it would not have ended the same.
So to me, I thought that was, I mean, this actually makes this story even better. Is that it's almost this historical moment that we're all like, oh, we're all in for this, and
Yeah.
it's an interracial couple in the 1960s. I'm like, yes, let's do it.
Yep.
But so they're on their way back. At this point they've been married for about 16 months. Barney works at the post office on a night shift. It's a very long, hard kind of job. He has a 60-mile commute, which sounds horrifying.
Yeah, that sounds no. That doesn't sound fun at all.
So
No.
he's stressed. He's tired. Betty is actually a social worker who deals with child welfare cases, which is also super stressful.
Oh yeah.
So it was
Gosh,
kind of
these people
yeah.
they got some high stress jobs, yeah.
And so they decide, impromptu, let's take a trip. 3 days, let's go have a good time.
You're like, let's get out of Dodge for a minute.
Yeah.
Because life sucks.
It was so impromptu that when they left, the banks had already closed, so they only had like the $70 in their pocket. Which I'm like, I don't have $70 in my pocket, so damn.
Right.
But so they had a nice trip. They are in. It's like 10 o'clock, September 19th. It's 10 o'clock at night. They had stopped at a diner to have a cup of coffee and had decided that they're going to try and make it back home because they were on the coast of Vermont at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a hurricane coming in, so they wanted to, or probably just like a nor'easter, just strong storm, bad. And they wanted to kind of outrun the rain and the wind and get home before that really hit. So they're like, well, we can drive through the night. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
So they leave the diner. They are near Lancaster, New Hampshire, but they're going home to Portsmouth. So back then it was like a 4 to 5 hour drive to get there.
Okay.
So they're expecting to make it home around like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Okay.
Which, good for them. Cool. But as they're driving these lonely roads. It's the middle of the night. They're kind of mountainous. And they notice a light in the sky that seems odd. It just doesn't look quite right.
It's the moon.
At first they thought it was like a shooting star.
Okay.
But as they kept driving, it seemed to grow brighter and larger. So they're like, well, it should have already like
if that was a shooting star, that would not, no.
It's already shot its shot. It shouldn't keep going,
Yeah, right.
Barney, who was in World War II and had some experience with planes and aircraft, said that, probably it was just a satellite or something that had gotten off course.
Okay.
But so they keep on driving, and Betty, of course, is still paying attention to this light, and it's weird. Like, it seems to do, like, zigzagging, and seems to be kind of following their car, because they're going, it's curvaceous roads.
If there's ever zigzagging light anywhere
Run.
when I'm driving, I'm pulling over.
Yeah.
I'm like,
GTF.
no, we are not doing this right now.
He's like, nope, I'm out. No.
Yep.
So it seems to be following their car. Betty watches it seemingly like duck behind the mountains and then pop back over. Like, it's almost like a cat and mouse game is how she described it.
This is already like creeping me out. Like,
right,
driving in the middle of the night with a creepy light chasing you.
Well, and so again, remember the terrifying story that from my childhood. It's dark. Everything's dark and it's scary.
It's all dark and scary.
I
Yep.
know. So they decide to stop and pull over at a picnic area so that they can take a better look at the light, but also because they have a dog named Delsi, who is in the back
puppy
seat
involved.
and
No.
so she needs to go potty, obviously. And so they dig out their binoculars because back in the 60s, everybody had a nice pair of binoculars.
Yes. I feel like there was a lot of bird watching that went on back in the
Hmm.
60s.
Well, or just general spying. I don't know.
There were some stalkers out there.
But
Definitely.
so Betty gets the binoculars and she's looking at this light and she's looking through and she's like, there's an odd shaped craft that has these multicolored flashing lights. Like she can see it through the binoculars. And she immediately assumed it was a flying saucer because her sister had claimed to see a flying saucer several years earlier. So like she was like, that's what we're seeing.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Interesting though that they both saw one. Like that's
yeah, I know. And so she's like she's like handing the binoculars to Barney. He's like, Barney,
like look at
you
this.
gotta see this. You gotta see this. And so he's looking at it and he's like, it's just a commercial plane. Stop being silly,
Yeah.
And she's like, you've got to be kidding me. Clearly
She's
that is
like,
not a plane. Like you need to
stop
use your eyeballs
mansplaining.
and look at it.
She's
I can
like, stop
absolutely imagine.
mansplaining to me right now.
I can absolutely imagine the conversation. Like, stop being stupid. Look through them and actually look at it.
I know.
And so he's looking through them again, and then realizes that the light, the thing, has rapidly started descending, and he gets creeped out by it. So they're like, "We should go."
Like, you know what? That's what you get for gaslighting and mansplaining
Right?
to me.
That's
okay.
Right. So, so they're like, "Well, let's go." So they get back in the car. And they're going through a particularly lonely stretch of the road. I mean, again, it's late. No one's there. They've not seen any of the cars. But it's a mountainous part of the road. It's very curvy. So they're driving slow, partly because it's curvy, but partly because they're trying to keep an eye on this weird light thing. Like, what is this?
Yeah. Like, what is this thing following us?
And so they're like watching it like dodge around and being all, weird.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly it starts to descend upon their car. Like they can see it like in the windshield, and they're like freaking the shit out. So Barney stops the car and of course shoves his super secret pistol that he hides under the car seat into his pocket. And because at this point the car stops, so he gets out of the car and he's walking closer to the other UFO, which, hello, don't do that. Don't
right,
go closer.
Like why do people walk toward the UFO?
I don't know. I'm not gonna walk towards the UFO, okay? Not gonna do it.
You don't. And it's like, I don't know what it is. Well, then you don't know what it is, so run.
Yeah, it's
get away from it.
And so he's got his binoculars in hand. He's got his pistol in his pocket. And he's walking closer, and he uses the binoculars to look at it. Because at this point, it's still like 100 feet in the air, probably, over their car.
Okay.
And he can see, he says, 8 to 11 humanoid creatures wearing glossy black uniforms and capes. Which I'm like, oh, I like that they have capes. They're very dapper.
To the humanesque creatures.
Yeah, humanoid. And
I really like humanesque.
as he's looking at them, and he can kind of tell like there's like one in the middle and there's like others around the guy in the middle of whatever. And he suddenly feels like they're communicating a message to him that he's supposed to stay where he is and keep looking, like through the binoculars.
That's
and he's
creepy.
like, I want my gun. I want my gun. So he's trying to put down the binoculars so that he can grab his gun, and he physically can't. Like, he can't move.
Yeah, you're just like,
which is horrifying. And so then he sees these red lights on the side of the craft start coming out like bat wings, I think is how it was described. And then some kind of a structure is starting to descend. Like, I think it was later described as kind of like a ladder or a ramp or something. And it was kind of vague.
So what he's saying is Batman is really an alien.
Yes. Well, there were capes. Don't forget, they're wearing capes.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
And so finally he was able to kind of break out of that weird little trance thing, and he's like running back to the car screaming at Betty, they're going to capture us. And he gets back in the car and they Scooby-Doo out of there, like, pedal to the metal, getting out of here. And as they're like trying to get away, like they're driving, suddenly they hear a series of beeps, like beeping noises,
Oh no.
and they feel the car start to vibrate,
Oh no.
and then they lose consciousness.
Oh gosh. I would have.
Are you
Yeah.
ready for it?
Yeah. Hit me.
2 hours later,
2
which is
hours.
exactly the story that my friend's mom was like, 2 hours later, pass on the clock. I'm like, shut up a bit. No, this
So
is
your
where
mom,
it is.
so Leanne's mom basically told you the story,
Basically told us this story, yes, and I had no idea, and
and
I'm
then she
still
made
traumatized.
it like it happened on this road.
And I'm like, ah! So 2 hours later, they come to, and they are 35 miles down the road from where they were.
Oh shit.
And they're just like, the hell happened?
Are
And
they
it's
still in the
kind of-
car?
They're in the car, and they're like, what?
Okay.
What?
I didn't know if like they were like outside of the car or still
They're
in
in
the
the
car.
car.
Okay.
And so they just go home.
I mean I feel like that's on par for the time
Okay.
period. It's like bad
I'm
things
not gonna
happen.
lie,
Let's not
if that-
talk about it. Let's just go
Well,
home.
I think if it were me, I probably would be like, I don't think I want to go to a hospital and be committed. I want to go home.
Right.
I
Yeah.
want to go home now. And so they don't get home till almost dawn. So like definitely time passed.
Yeah.
And
Since
so
they were supposed to be home at like 2 or 3 in the morning,
Yeah.
and then it's like, yeah.
I know, it's like, hello, son. So they're trying to figure out what happened, and they have these kind of odd sensations, odd impulses, notice some weird things. So Betty insisted that the luggage that had been in their car had to be kept by the back door and not in the main part of the house where it normally is kept. She just couldn't. She's like, no, it has to be. She couldn't explain
Okay.
why. She's like, it just has to. It's got to be not in the rest
It
of the
needs
house.
to be here.
It's got to
Yeah.
be over. It's got to be away. Their watches had stopped working and would never work again. They couldn't be repaired.
Like we couldn't just change the battery and be
No,
done
like
with
they
it.
just something that killed them both.
Gotcha.
Barney noticed that the binocular strap had been torn, but he didn't have any memory of it tearing or how it tore. The toes of his best dress shoes were all scraped up, and he was like, I don't know when that happened. He felt compelled, like this is as soon as they're home, like they've not slept yet.
Yeah.
As soon as they get home, he felt compelled to check out his genitals, but he couldn't find anything unusual and couldn't explain why he needed to look.
That's weird.
He was like, "There's something wrong." They both took very long showers.
Yeah.
So they had that innate sense of something wrong.
Like,
And
I feel dirty.
they
I need
tried
to
to like compare notes, but they couldn't remember anything. Like it's just gone.
Yeah, just time is gone.
So after they wake up, because they go to sleep for a while, Betty is looking at her dress that she had been wearing and noticed that it had been torn, like near the zipper. The lining had been torn. She had no idea how that happened or when it happened. She also noticed that there was like a pink powder on her dress. So she took it outside and like hung it up to, I don't know. I can't decide if she had washed it or what, but she took it outside to hang it up, and like, the powder had all blown away in the wind, so it wasn't there to show anybody later. They went out and looked at their car, and they found two concentric circles on their car that hadn't been there before, and when they held a compass near those circles, it would just spin rapidly and wouldn't stop. It just... And as soon as they took it away from the car, it was fine.
Why would you...
Why would you pick up a compass?
Yeah, like, why would you be like, oh, here are these spots on my car. I'm going to go get a compass and hold it near this.
Well, I mean, they remembered
good for them
all
for
the
being
stuff
that,
about
but...
the weird craft and everything. Like, they remembered up to that point. So, like, they know something has happened. So maybe they're...
I just feel like that's an odd thing to do. Like, oh, let's go put a compass near these circles on my car. Like, that was just, like, strange.
Yeah, it's fair. So they weren't really sure what had happened. 2 days later...
Like, they don't know. They just don't know.
Well, right. Well, and they're traumatized. It's fair.
Oh, obviously, yes.
So 2 days later, Betty decides to contact the local Air Force base because, I mean, at this point, UFO sightings are semi-common. They're not unheard of. Like, it's a thing that
Yeah.
happens. Um, she doesn't initially, like in her initial phone call, like say everything because she knows it
Oh,
sounds
yeah.
insane.
Well, I mean, it is.
But
I guess you kind of want to put feelers out and be like,
well, to be like,
does this person on the other
so
end of
we
this
had this
phone
thing,
think I'm batshit crazy?
right? But so the Air Force Base sends a Major Henderson out to interview them, in which they tell him the story to the best of their knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Big chunk of time missing. And my favorite thing is that in the end, he writes up like a report and says that the hills probably just misidentified Jupiter.
What?
Thank you, right? I'm like, I'm sorry.
What?
A light is like, even if you don't believe that they saw it, like a
No.
light is chasing them around and following them, and you're like, oh, they just misidentified Jupiter. It was particularly bright that night. I'm like, excuse me.
No. That's bush. Okay. That's complete bush. And that is somebody being lazy and not doing their goddamn
Well,
job, is what that
and
is.
especially so like that report was forwarded on to the Air Force had Project Blue Book. I don't know if you came across that in your stuff,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
which was the Air Force's own UFO research project. So they were actively looking into this stuff. And
Even though they're like, no, we're not.
well, I feel like Project Blue Book is going to be my topic when we have another alien thing, or
Yeah.
because I'm like, it's fascinating, all the crazy shit that they're like, that's fine. It's not
Right.
fine.
Yeah. We're just like, no, it's not
But
us.
so,
It's probably something else. And then they're like, oh, we lied.
and as is the theme for almost every story, they didn't help the hills. They were like, it's
Yeah.
Jupiter, you're fine. So Betty is like, well, now what do I do? So she does what any good citizen does when they're struck with a problem. She went to her local library.
Yay. She's like, forget you people. I'm going to go do my own research.
Yeah. So she ends up borrowing a book that's about UFOs written by a retired Marine Corps officer named Kehoe, Keyhoe,
Okay.
who is also the head of NICAP, which is a civilian UFO research group.
Okay.
So she writes a letter to him. That letter gets passed on to a guy named Walter Webb, who's also a member of that group and an
Mm-hmm.
astronomer. And so Webb ended up meeting with them in October. So pretty quick, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah, it's only been like a month.
It's only been, it's maybe been like 2-3 weeks, maybe a month. It's, okay. And so I'm going to skip a lot because this story is quite detailed, and I just want to get to the cool things that are most important about our alien abductions here. So in the days following their trip, their experience, Betty had some very vivid dreams, and she told them to Barney once, but he was kind of like, I don't want to hear about it. It's just dreams. Let's just ignore it. Don't worry about it. So she kind of kept them to herself and wrote them down.
Because that's
But I
part
want
of
to
the
tell you
course.
about her dreams.
Just ignore it. It will go away.
It's the 60s.
It is
Okay,
the
so
60s.
her dreams. And she had, I think, 5 dreams total. In one of them, she dreamed that she and Barney encountered a roadblock on a drive and that men surrounded their car. That at that point she lost consciousness in the car and struggled to kind of get it back.
Yeah.
And when she was able to kind of force herself to be conscious again, she realized that she was being forced by 2 small men to walk in a forest at night and could see Barney was behind her. And she tried to call to him, but he was not, he was obviously in a trance or sleepwalking. He wasn't responding to her at all. She said that the men stood like 5 feet-ish. They were about 5 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And wore matching blue uniforms with caps similar to those worn by military cadets, which I think are fun. I like those.
So is she thinking that she's dreaming?
She's thinking
like about the time that they lost?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's thinking that.
Like her dreams are like telling her like this is what happened when you like lost those 2 hours.
She says that they appeared nearly human,
Mm-hmm.
human-esque, if you will. They had black
Humanesque.
hair, dark eyes, prominent noses, bluish lips, and their skin was grayish, which goes with our first story where it's like little green men was actually gray men. They saw
Yeah.
gray men. And
Oh, and
so
that
these
was
are
the
also
thing.
gray.
I forgot to mention that in the Travis Walton story, the first ones that he came in contact with when he first woke up, he
hmm
said they were also gray.
So there's consistency, even though our
Yeah.
trope is green. So I'm like,
Right.
whoa, creepy, creepy. So in the dreams, Betty and Barney and the men walked up a ramp into the. She called it a disc-shaped craft
Mm-hmm.
that had a metallic appearance, which again goes with
Yep.
what we've heard. And that once they were inside, they were separated. That she didn't want to be separated and was trying to keep that from
Yeah.
happening, and that one of the creatures, aliens, I don't know what we want to call them, that she could tell was sort of the leader, told her that if they were examined together, it would take longer. And so they were split up.
Okay.
So she then dreamed of a different man that was similar to them but wasn't the leader, that she refers to as the examiner, and that he was very pleasant and very calm, and that both the leader and the examiner spoke to her in English, or at least she perceived that they were speaking to her in English, but that they're they were not fluent English speakers, so sometimes it was hard for her to understand. But they
I
conducted
mean,
this.
I would
They would
think that aliens would have their own language.
fair, and I'm like, English is hard for people here. Like trying to
Right.
learn English as a second language. Can you imagine
100%.
trying to learn English when you don't know any human languages?
I
Buh.
know, right? No. 100%. Words are hard.
Yes, yes, they are. So the examiner told Betty that he would conduct a few tests because he wanted to know the differences between humans and whatever they were, aliens, the aliens. Um, she was seated on a chair and a bright light was shown on her. The man cut off. I'm gonna say alien because they're not really men. They just
Yeah.
whatever. The alien cut off a lock of her hair, examined her eyes, ears, mouth, teeth, throat, and hands, um, trimmed her fingernails, examined her legs and feet, used a dull knife similar to a letter opener to scrape skin onto like some. She said it looked kind of like plastic wrap, like cellophane.
So this is
Um,
like basically like a forensic test. Like this is
yeah,
like CSI or something. That's what this reminds me of.
but then it gets bad. So then he
Okay.
put a needle into her navel and her belly button.
No. Oh
And it
no.
caused her, she said it caused her agonizing pain. And
Mm.
once she started, like, I guess, reacting to the pain, the leader waved his hand in front of her eyes and the pain vanished.
What?
Right? I'm like, can we have that? Can I
No.
have that technology, please? I just want to go
Right.
floop, pan
That
gone.
reminds me, in what was it, The Matrix, where
Yeah.
that thing goes into his belly button and is like, I don't like anything like that.
No.
Like, it's like,
Leave my belly button alone.
I
Blech.
know, it's like, oh God, make it stop. I'm like, no.
So once the examiner left the room, Betty had a conversation with the leader. She picked up a book that had a bunch of strange symbols, and the leader told her she could take it home. She asked where he came from, and he
Hmm.
pulled down. I feel like you describe things based on what you know.
Yeah.
So, because that's one of the things that gets a lot of people to be like, this isn't real. They would have much better tech than what she's describing. I'm like, she's describing things based on things she knows what they are.
Yeah.
So she said
I mean,
that it
if
was
she's
like
seeing
pulling
things she's
down.
never, yeah, if
Right.
she's seeing things she's never seen before, like, you don't know, you don't have words for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she explained it as like he pulled down an instructional map that had stars on it, trying to sort of show where they're from. But then in her dream, the when they were being escorted off the ship, when Betty and Barney were being, it's like, we're done with you. You may go now. That a disagreement broke out, and the leader told told Betty. The leader told Betty that she couldn't keep the book because the other aliens on the ship did not want her to remember this encounter, so they didn't want her to have anything that would, they wanted to wipe their memories.
That's no fun.
But Betty was like, it doesn't matter what you do. I'm going to remember this one day. Like, I'm not going to, this is something that, it's like, that's not.
You can't wipe my memory forever.
So then she and Barney were taken back to their car, where they were told to watch the craft's departure, and then they could resume their drive. And that's what they did.
Wow.
So those were her dreams.
Yeah.
And she's basically, she told them to Barney at first, like one time, as I understand it.
Yeah.
But he was like, nah, that she never brought it up again. There's a whole lot of other things that happen. Different people contacting different people. They're going to different groups. She's getting into like UFO groups because she's like, this thing has happened to me. I need to understand it.
She's trying to work through her confusion. Right. Meanwhile, Barney's like, there was nothing.
Well, and poor Barney he had a lot of anxiety because he doesn't know what happened.
Because you need to learn how to process your trauma.
I was going to say, it's very obvious, he's having like a post-traumatic response to everything. And so he ends up starting to see a psychiatrist. Not related to the UFO things, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
Just he's going to a psychiatrist. He has a lot of anxiety. He's really upset. The psychiatrist is Dr. Simon. And so Dr. Simon ends up hypnotizing Barney to help him remember what happened, to come to terms with it in order to lessen his anxiety. So Barney goes under hypnosis.
They mentioned that briefly in the documentary I had. Is that they had gone, and it was that same kind of like regressive hypnosis. And they played like a clip of it, and I was just like, that sounds a little bit terrifying.
Well, yeah. So under Barney's hypnosis, he remembers that the binocular strap that had suddenly been got torn when he was running away from the UFO to go back to his car. He didn't remember that.
Okay.
He remembered driving away from the UFO, but then feeling irresistibly compelled to pull off the road and drive into the woods. Apparently, aliens like woods. Based on your story and my story, they like the woods. I've got chills again. I'm sorry, I'm freaking out.
Sounds like
Just telling this story, I'm like, ah. He eventually sighted 6 men standing in the dirt road. The car stalled, and 3 of the men approached the car. They told Barney not to fear them, but he was anxious, and he reported that he was still very anxious, but then the leader told Barney to close his eyes. And while hypnotized, Barney said, I felt like the eyes had pushed into my eyes, referring to the leader's eyes, which sounds weird and creepy, and I don't like that.
Yeah, that's like, no. No, thank you. No, thank you. I don't want any of that.
So Barney described the beings generally similar the way that Betty did, not in her dream, but when she was later hypnotized, because her hypnotized statements varied somewhat.
Yeah.
Which I'll get into in a minute. But so both of their hypnotized descriptions were the same, but they were not the same as the dream that Betty had given. So he said the beings often stared into his eyes with a, quote, Barney, terrifying and mesmerizing effect.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I know, this is horrifying. So under hypnosis, Barney would say things like, oh, those eyes, they're in my brain. I'm like, that's awful.
No. No. None
he
of
said,
that.
I was told to close my eyes because I saw 2 eyes coming close to mine. I felt like the eyes had pushed into my eyes. Like, he kept saying this over and over again. Those eyes must really mess with him.
I don't even like that visual. Like,
He's like,
no.
all I see are these eyes. I'm not even afraid that they're not connected to a body. They're just there. They're just up close to me, pressing against my eyes. And I'm like, what the hell is happening?
Connected to a body? What?
I don't know. But I'm like, this is awful. Because, like, Betty's dreams sound kind of like she's having a discussion and learning things. And it's not so bad. And then Barney is like, the eyes are in my eyes.
They're in my brain.
They
Maybe
can feel them in
the dreams were just her way of, like, processing.
Right.
Still creepy.
But Barney did say that he and Betty were taken into the craft and they were separated. He was escorted to a room and told to lie on a small rectangular exam table. But his memory of the exam was very fragmented. He said he continued to keep his eyes closed during most of the exam. Like, he just did. He's like, nope. Yeah.
That's probably for the best.
It's like,
that's probably I would have just been like closing my eyes. We're gonna pretend this is not happening.
But he said, right. Well, and for him, like, her exam based on her dream sounded like it was okay, minus the needle in the navel. Blech. But for Barney, he said a cup-like device was placed over his genitals.
Okay.
He said, he goes on, this is, again, his hypnosis. He said he did not experience an orgasm, but he thought that a sperm sample had been taken. And I'm like,
ew.
Huh?
What? Ew.
Let's see.
Wow.
They scraped his skin. They peered into his eyes and mouth, similar to, like, Betty's dream.
Mm-hmm.
But he said that a tube or a cylinder of some sort was inserted into his anus and quickly removed. So apparently the probing happens, man. It's happened from the beginning.
Probed.
He got
well,
probed.
I feel like she got probed too, since they stuck that thing in her belly
needle
button.
in her freaking belly button. That sounds awful.
Yeah, I feel like that's probing. Yeah, no, not cool. Not cool at all.
And he said someone felt his spine and seemed to be counting his vertebrae, which is creepy. So Betty reported that she had a conversation with the quote-unquote leader in English, but Barney said he only heard them speaking in a mumbling language and he didn't understand any of it. Let's see. He said that the few times they communicated with him, it seemed to be like a thought transference, but he didn't know the word telepathy, so he was having a hard time explaining. He's like, I could hear them, but they weren't saying
in his
things.
head. Yeah, like I didn't hear them with my ears, like they were in my brain, kind of thing.
But both of them said that they did not see their mouths moving when they were talking to them in English. So it had to be that kind of, I'm in your head telling you things. He recalled being escorted from the ship and taken back to the car. And he remembered watching the ship leave. And then Barney remembered a light appearing on the road. And he said, oh, no, not again.
Oh, gosh.
And he remembered that Betty thought that the light might have just been the moon. But it wasn't the moon. It's never the moon.
I know, right? You're like, no.
And then he said that he tried to produce that weird sound that had hit their car or that had hit them before they had lost consciousness. He was trying to make his car make that noise, and he tried several times driving side to side and stopping and starting the car, and he could never get his car to make that same noise.
Huh.
And so he says all of this under hypnosis. So all of that happened, and he doesn't remember any of it until he's hypnotized.
Yeah.
So Betty was also hypnotized by Dr. Simon, and her account was pretty similar to the dreams that she had. Mostly it was like her description of the aliens were different. And like the order was slightly different, and some of the technology that she talked about was different, but basically to me that makes sense. Your brain is going to use things that you know in order to try and explain something. Under hypnosis, they did have her try and recreate the star map that she was shown, and several astronomers were trying to figure out where this was. I did include the star map in the email that I sent you.
Yeah, I saw
It's
that.
weird looking.
It
Um,
is. Definitely.
Eventually, astronomers decided that it is the only thing that it could be, that they are aware of anyway, is a system called Zeta Reticuli system,
I came across that
which
several
is
times.
39 light years from Earth. So very, 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 very far away.
Mm.
So most of this stuff happened, like all
Like,
of this
there's
kind of
no
happened for
reason
their,
that
yeah.
she would have had that in her head
Right.
otherwise.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and like I also included they included like drawings of the craft from like 100
Mhm.
feet above them and 200 feet above them as to what
Yeah.
they remember seeing. So I included that as well. There's also a picture of them with their dog Delsi, who survived. She's fine, or was fine. This is 60. She's dead now. But so this all happened really in like 1961, early 62. And it mostly was kept in house. That wasn't a
Yeah.
huge publicized thing. You know, Betty was talking to UFO groups and other people, but it wasn't like a huge story until
Mhm.
1965 when a Boston newspaper picked it up and it became huge, as of course it did.
Yeah.
And so, like, books were written. There was a movie that starred James Earl Jones
Oh gosh.
about it.
Yes.
And you know it blew up and everybody knew the story, which is why Leanne's mother told me the horrifying short version as an urban legend in the car back in the 90s. Blah. I still have nightmares about it. So unfortunately Barney died in 1969. Nothing really tells me of what, just I don't
Yeah.
know, life. But Betty remained active in the UFO circles and in the civilian people that were doing research into UFOs and alien
Mhm.
abductions. And she claimed that she was visited several times over the years. So like she maintained some kind of contact with these particular aliens. Um,
Interesting.
and then she died in 2004.
Okay.
But so this was basically the first abduction story that everyone knew,
Mhm.
that everyone knew the storyline, the car, the lost time, having to, you know, retrieve memories, having probes, having exams, like all of that.
Yeah.
This is where most of the stories probably come from, or this particular like framework that
It was the
people
first, so it's
know.
like
Yeah.
all of them need to be, yeah, they're based off of that.
So I thought it was a really well, one, terrifying. I've already explained all my terror. Bleh.
Yes.
But but it's super fascinating. And for those of you who are concerned about Delsi, as far as anyone can tell, Delsi was not abducted by the aliens. She was left alone in the car. Um, she cowered underneath the driver's seat or the passenger seat when the aliens
Mhm.
were like around or whatever. But they left her alone. She went home. They had only had her for like 6 weeks, and so soon after they came back from being abducted, I guess.
Yeah.
Delsi got sick with a skin infection, but it probably was something that she had gotten from wherever her previous home was, not related to the aliens or the radiation.
Gotcha.
So she lived for another 6 years after that and seemed to have a happy, good little puppy life. So Delsi was okay. Just in case you're
Aliens didn't have
wondering.
any interest in the dog.
They were like, puppy. It's like, we don't want to probe you, puppy. You're fine.
I know, right?
But so that is the story of Betty and Barney Hill and the kind of the beginning of abduction stories that,
Yeah.
changed how we do aliens. I mean, it direct inspiration for like Close Encounters of the Third
Oh,
Kind and
definitely.
like
Yeah.
all of that. So like, blah. Gross. So
And
there you have
I
it.
know that when we talked about UFOs, because like that, the first ones that we talked about happened like in the 40s, and it talked about how there was like a resurgence in
Mm-hmm.
the 70s because of Star Wars, but I think it probably also was because of stories like theirs and Travis Walton's because that was,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and
because
there.
that was like right around the time they released Star Wars and Close Encounters.
Well,
It was
yeah.
just like, you know, especially yours. Yours was probably about a decade before, but you know, it's like maybe that's why there was a resurgence because all of a sudden people started
Mm-hmm.
getting abducted.
Well, and of course, this story, a lot of people were like, "Oh, they're just doing it for the
Oh yeah.
attention. They, it's all yada yada." And I can't say that's not true because I don't know. But
Mhm.
to me, the arguments were basically, well, they would have had a better technology. They wouldn't have had pull down maps to show stuff. And I'm like,
Not necessarily.
my argument is, you know, they had technology for themselves that, we don't know or understand. And our
Yeah.
brains can't we can't create, like, we can't see something and understand it. That, if you're in the year 3000 BC and you come across a pocket watch laying on a beach, you can't explain that. You're
Yeah.
you're not going to explain it in any way that would be like, oh, it's crazy technology that we can't understand. It's just,
Yeah.
I found this rock that comes apart, like.
Yeah.
It's so, to me, when I'm like, well, when he pulled down a map, is like, it probably wasn't like a paper map attached to the ceiling,
Like,
guys.
it wasn't like one of
It's
those
just
that you had in elementary school where it was
right.
like whoosh.
It was just how she could explain it,
Yeah.
especially as it's a dream. It's a memory she's recovering through a dream. Like, her brain is trying to
Yeah.
process it in something that she can understand. So I don't buy that as an argument against it.
Yeah.
Whether it happened or not, I don't know, but
Well,
I
that's
do
one
know
thing too,
that
like
she, like, die hard fell into UFO life
yeah.
right after that happened. And although, like, her sister had claimed she'd seen a flying saucer at some point, she wasn't die hard into UFO stuff before.
Yeah.
So something happened to trigger that, I think.
Yeah.
And it
When you were
wasn't
talking about,
seeing
like, use
Jupiter
it
being
for
exceptionally bright.
attention,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you were talking about using it for attention, and that's what they said about Travis Walton too, but most of the
Both
people
of them
who
tried to not get
yeah,
attention.
and that was, like and it was before that, like, he was just this guy who was out living his life not seeking attention. So, it's like,
Well,
no, I don't
and
think that's not the person he is. He's not an attention seeker. He's not somebody who's gonna go
mm-hmm.
and make up this elaborate story
Well, and
to get
in that
attention.
case, it was the operator who, privacy, hello, who,
Right?
like, let the cat out of the bag. And in the Hills case, like, it was 3-4 years later that a newspaper even picked it up. Like, they
Like, it
weren't
wasn't something that was
going around
immediate.
being like,
Yeah.
"I was abducted, listen to me." Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Like, they weren't out there, like, telling everybody, like, she was talking to
Mm-hmm.
people who were in, like, that scientific community, but she wasn't out there, like, going to the papers,
Right.
like, "Put my story out there,"
Well,
that kinda thing.
I cut a whole bunch of stuff out because time, but it was always her trying to find someone that could help her process what had happened, to
Yeah.
talk to about it. It was never about, I want to be a speaker at your next event or whatever.
Oh, right, yeah.
So
100%.
it always felt like she was trying to find some way to deal with her trauma and to frame her experience into something that she
Yeah.
could
Some
process
way
and deal
to
with. Well,
explain,
and
like,
it
what
was
she saw
and it
or,
was Barney basically having a
Mm.
nervous breakdown, all the anxiety about it all that took him down the path that led to hypnosis. She wasn't really doing, like, she had asked someone that did, like, amateur hypnosis about it, and he was like,
Yeah.
"No, you need to find someone who's not an amateur." And she's like, "Oh,
I
okay."
I wonder if part of his too was you said he had been in World War II.
Right.
Like, I have to
Yeah.
wonder if that also played into him having such, like,
Sure.
PTSD as well.
I
If
mean,
he had, like, some
whoa.
PTSD from the
Yes.
war,
And in
and then,
fact,
then this happened, and it was like,
in
"No."
in one of his, I don't know if it was in the hypnosis or a statement after he had gone through hypnosis, he said that the leader, um to him, reminded him of Hitler. Something about the leader's face was Hitler-esque or
Oh,
something. And so, like,
no.
he did
Oh,
absolutely
no.
have World War II related PTSD connected to this, which, fair. I mean,
So
So
Hitler was an alien.
that's what it is. Hitler is actually an alien.
Yes.
And he abducted people to, have fun,
Right.
I guess. Probe them.
No. Ew. No probing. No probing. 0. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. Alien abduction stories.
There you have it. Hitler was an alien
Yes.
and likes to do anal probes.
Ew.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I'll leave that one on the wheel and come back to it because there were several on the interwebs.
Right. Well, and there are some that I think are spookier, but I feel like you need some like these earlier base ones to be like, this is where it started to understand where we are.
Yep.
All right.
Anywho.
So now
And
it's time.
now it's time for Tarot with April.
A spooky.
A spooky.
All right. So Claire, do you recall what our tarot cards were for this past week?
I do. I have
what
it written
were they,
down.
Claire?
The Death.
Which was so on point. I had so
I
many
mean,
death things that
was
were not
ridiculous.
like actual death, but like death themed everywhere I went. And I'm like, hello, death. Here we go.
All right.
First we have the Page of Wands.
Page of Wands.
Then we have the Emperor. Dun, dun, dun.
Emperor. Ooh, fancy.
And finally, the Four of Wands. None of these are inverted. They're all
Okay.
upright.
Cool.
So,
4 of Wands.
Page of Wands. This is how we shall start our week.
All right.
The Page of Wands, like the Fool, has a fresh yet passionate outlook on life. Drawing this card indicates you have a creative spark in you, so go ahead, be spontaneous, follow your creative muse. Exploration, enthusiasm, discovery, and creativity. Yay! That sounds great.
That's a good one. I enjoy that. I'm glad that we finally are starting the week out on a better note.
I know. I'm like, yes. That sounds great. We need that. We need more creativity in our life.
We do.
All right. Our midweek will be filled with the Empress, right?
Emperor.
The Emperor? Oh. The Emperor. Not the Empress. The Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
As the father figure of the tarot deck, the Emperor suggests that you are adopting this fatherly role, providing for your family, and protecting and defending your loved ones. You may be the breadwinner or the rock for those who rely on your stability and security. He is stern and sometimes authoritarian, yet very wise and level-headed. Having weathered many years, he has a solid foundation and is able to provide for others. He reflects your strong ambitions and confidence, bringing stability and security in life. So, stability, power, aid, protection, a great person, and conviction. So it sounds like we're going to be very, confident in the middle of our week.
Okay. I can deal with that.
Yes, it's so far better.
Yes.
Better than, what we've had.
No whammies with 4 of Wands.
God, right. All right. Where are you, Wands? I lost you. Come back to me. Pentacles, Swords. Wands. Okay. The 4 of Wands is how we shall end our week. The 4 of Wands indicates a period of stability, fulfillment, and harmony. Oh, God.
We're all full of stableness this week.
Perhaps you have reached a milestone in your projects. This card is also associated with the home, so now might be a good time to spend quality time with your friends and family. It means harmony, community, celebration, and good relationships. Thank God. It's a nice, good week of creativity and confidence and harmony. So that's what it's going to be.
That's right.
Yes, we need it.
Finally.
Finally, the cards have shown us their love. It's about time. I'm excited for our cards this week. I think it's going to be nice.
I know. It's like, what?
So now I'm having high, warm, fuzzy hopes for our Wheel of Fate here. it's got to give us some good love. I mean, we're going to end our week with harmony, so
Yeah,
give me some harmony.
hope we got some good topics. A good topic for next week. Are we ready?
Are you ready? I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yes.
No whammies. No whammies.
No whammies.
Harmony,
Here we go.
creativity, confidence. Those are my power words for the week.
Your power words.
They're my power words. Uh-oh. She's laughing. She's laughing hard. Oh, dear.
Vampires.
Yes! Vampires! How exciting!
Vampires.
Vampires. It's just getting better and better. I'm so excited. From alien abductions to vampires, folks. You can't wait to be here.
We put all the cryptid things and the weird things on there, so
because we love
y'all are
them.
gonna get like Abominable Snowman / Yeti and Bigfoot and Loch Ness sometime. They're all on there.
They're all on here.
All the things, Chupacabra, it's all on there. So we have so many things on this wheel. Anyway, so is this one you want me to leave on or to take off? We'll take it off.
A week.
I know, right? It's like,
how
what?
exciting! Yay! Okay, good. I was afraid it's going to be some obscure history thing. I was like,
So yeah, join us next week as we talk about vampires.
The power is strong with us. We can do this.
It is.
All right. So until then, you can find us in all sorts of places. You can find us on Instagram at
Brunch and Judge.
You can also follow us on Facebook at
Brunch and Judge.
And you can send us an email with your own judges, your own personal judges, as well as topics for our Wheel of Fate to
brunchandjudge@gmail.com.
You can find us on YouTube if you're listening to us at Brunch and Judge. And if you are watching us on YouTube but you'd rather not see us, which you're wrong, but whatever, then you can find us on any of your main podcast stations. We're there. We're Brunch and Judge everywhere.
Yep.
And
we even just opened a TikTok account.
Perhaps you'll see our very first TikTok video, which is also at
Brunch and Judge.
Because that's who we are. So we're going to see if we're actually TikTok stars. We just don't know it yet.
We're going to use that for like little mini judges, like in the moment.
Yeah, I'm going to there's also probably, I'm going to warn you, I hope you like cats because Agatha is the judgiest cat that has ever been. So there will be judges with Agatha on our TikTok.
Yes.
She has feelings, very strong feelings. She's quite vocal.
She is.
If Agatha were a human, she would be a Karen.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Oh, I feel that. I feel like Merlin kind of would be too.
Merlin would be. I worry that Merlin would be like an incel, quite honestly, because he's he would just hold on all the hate and
he's a hateful cat.
He's a hateful kitty. He's great and sweet, but then when you're like, oh, you're such a nice guy, then he flips out. That's Merlin.
Then he's like, nah.
He'd be like, I hate you. I deserve more than this. I mean, he spends his entire cat life separating Spencer and I. He sleeps between us. He if we're on the couch, he likes to get between us. It's really funny to me. He's like, no.
He's like, I am the only male in your life.
But he loves Spencer.
Have anybody else.
And he loves me, but we're not allowed to love each other.
You can't be together. Yeah.
It's the rules
of Merlin. It's all about Merlin.
That's right. Merlin is the priority. We must always remember that.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you joining us for this episode on alien abductions.
Yes. Hopefully hopefully none of you get abducted this week, but if you do, send us an email. Yes. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, let us know. We want to know if you've been abducted by an alien.
Or if you also have traumatic childhood memories of someone else's, of anyone, telling you this terrifying abduction stories. Yes. Please let me know, because I would love to share my trauma. I don't want to be alone with the trauma of Leanne's mom scaring the crap out of me. We'll always remember. We'll never forget. We'll never forget. All right, well, until next time, keep on brunching.
And keep on judging.
Bye.
Bye. Brunch and Judge. Brunch and Judge. We brunch and judge everything and give you opinions that nobody asked for.